and welcome to your LSU Football Fix special post-spring football game edition. I'm going to have Zack Nagy of Sports Illustrated come on in just a bit. We're going to talk about what we saw in the spring game. We're going to talk about what we should expect with this LSU women's basketball team coming next year, because LSU just landed a massive transfer portal addition. You have to be impressed with the job defending national champions Kim Mulkey has done. But first, one of the reasons I wanted to do this today is what I was observing in the spring game and what I've seen for this team. I feel this team has the ingredients to be a special team this year. I'm not going to go out and make a prediction as to wins or whatever else, but I do want to give some observations I've had. One of the things I remember is the 2019 team before the season. I went out and looked at the team and I was like, man, I have a lot of optimism going into this season for reasons, but it was my first year with Tiger Bait and I was a little conservative. I said, I'm going to go 10-2, and these are the flaws I've seen and why I think they're going to go 10-2. And I said, but I was very close to saying this team would win the SEC and do something special and make a playoff run. But these reservations, and I tried to be fair. If y'all know this show and y'all have watched me and heard from me for a while, y'all know I am not a huge homer. I'm not going to sit here and sip the Kool-Aid and tell you everything's great when it's not. I try to be rational and reasonable and level-headed with my analysis. So here's what I'm analyzing now. Rule number one, let's get this out of the way when talking about spring football. The first rule, do not overreact to the spring game. Got it? Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about it. Because it's all we're going to have to talk about until fall practice anyway, so, why not? Based on what I've seen, this team has a chance to be very special in 2023. Why do I believe this? Looking back, there's a handful of teams I can recall that thinking, man, they have this potential to be special before the season started, right? 03, I was a little too young for all that jazz. I don't know. I mean, I followed the team, thought, they were great and all, but I didn't see anything coming before 03. I was 11 years old or whatever. But 07, I remember that team. I remember thinking that was going to be a special year, and it was. 2011 had a crappy ending, but I thought that team was going to be very special going into the season. I just could smell it in the air. And 2019 was another one. Okay, these were the three teams I remember thinking before the season, these teams could be special. And all three went on to be special, right? And 2011 was certainly special in its own respect, although it had a catastrophic ending. There's other teams that stand off where I was kind of close. Like 2012 was a loaded roster, right? And it was very highly ranked in the preseason. You're talking about coming off that 13-1 year we just mentioned. And there was a lot of optimism with Mettenberger taking over for Jarrett Lee and Jordan Jefferson, who tended to struggle over the years. But after the 21-0 shellacking in the BCS championship, and it came at the hands of your former coach, Nick Saban, and then you had the gut-wrenching dismissal in Tyrann Mathieu, the team just had a certain je ne sais quoi. I don't know why. It just didn't have a great vibe around it, and it panned out to be an okay season. The next year, I had a hunch that 2013 might be special. I mean, you looked at that spring game, Mettenberger was tossing it around, but also Stephen Rivers was tossing it around in the spring game. And I don't think anybody thought Stephen Rivers was about to be a first-round draft pick, but the offense did look good. You had Cam Cameron coming in, who there was hope that he would really spice up that offense, and he did for his first season when you had stars like Jeremy Hill, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, all, peaked at their LSU career. And it was a special season. But the reasons I had reservations about that team is because you had a mass exodus from the 2012 season where everybody with any draft stock whatsoever departed for the NFL. They were all gone. I mean, there was 12 players with eligibility remaining who went pro. So just thinking about these teams that I almost thought were special or could have been special, and then the ones that I did have that feeling were special, I kind of thought to myself, what are the things that I'm looking for to see that a team's special? There's 5 things I'm looking for when I'm trying to figure out if an LSU team has the potential to be a title contender. Actually, none of them have anything to do with if you have tons of fast, talented athletes running around. This is LSU we're talking about. LSU hasn't fielded a team in the past 20 years that didn't have a lot of talented, capable athletes running around making big plays. So I just kind of skipped that. Like Harold Perkins, Mason Smith, yeah, we know. Malik Neighbors, we got it. Okay. I don't mean to belittle. I mean, obviously those guys are great, but this is LSU, and you shouldn't take for granted being able to land these elite talent, but you can. It's LSU. You get them every single year. And by the way, you get a ton of those guys every single year, and not every year is special. So there's other things that you need in addition to that I'm looking for. The first is it a core nucleus of starters returning from a 10-win team? Do you have a capable veteran quarterback? Does your team have plenty of depth? Did your team avoid losing players with eligibility remaining that should be on your roster? What do I mean by should? Well, were they a 5th round draft pick? Okay, they probably should have came back to college. Were they a guy who was about to start, right? And they entered the transfer portal? You should get them back. You're going to have a few of these guys every year because that's just the nature of the beast of college football, right? But you just want it to be a manageable number. You just want it to be a handful, as close to 0 as possible. And the 5th, and this is important now, a quiet offseason. Any offseason news should be something where your team can survive. You know, you do not want to hear Ryan Perrilloux gets dismissed from your team. By the way, depth, the aforementioned reasons can help survive a quiet offseason or a non-quiet offseason. So like if LSU had quarterbacks behind Ryan Perrilloux ready to roll, and it wasn't just, freshmen behind him, that 08 season might have been able to survive and be good. But you don't want Tyrann Mathieu dismissed from the team. You don't want Ryan Perrilloux dismissed from the team. Those are the colossal, earth-shattering news items I'm talking about, right? You want a quiet offseason. So how does this LSU team check up on those 5 boxes? As for the first one, it's a pretty easy check that box right off. LSU returns 17 starters from its 63-7 beatdown of Purdue in the Citrus Bowl, including 10 on your offense, by the way. The second I mentioned is a capable veteran quarterback. And this is a big point for me. I had a lot of thoughts about Jaden Daniels watching the spring game. LSU seems to have just that, a capable veteran quarterback with Jaden Daniels this year, coming off a season where he had 3,800 total yards, and 28 total touchdowns. However, the gaudy stat line and 10 wins don't necessarily mean there weren't things Jaden Daniels needed to work on. There was a lot of begrudging fans. The Nuss bus still exists for a reason, right? Daniels was good last year, but he struggled with holding on to the ball too long, indecisiveness, conservative checkdowns, and being a bit too quick to tuck the ball and run. All of these things I just mentioned, these are coachable issues that can be improved upon. Enter spring game. Daniels showed he may have taken the next step to correct these issues in the spring game. He was very decisive and stretched the field, completing 10 of his 11 passes for 168 yards and a pair of touchdowns. At 17 yards per completion, he was definitely pushing the ball downfield. And as for those happy feet and taking off too early, on 13 dropbacks, he only took off once, and it was for 19 yards, so he made it worth it. Excuse me. Yes, his throwing technique is unorthodox. Yes, his accuracy isn't pinpoint. It just kind of gets there. It's a little wobbly. Sometimes he throws a duck. And it forces receivers to make athletic plays. We saw on the very first play, he got it to Kyron Lacey. Kyron Lacey makes an extremely athletic grab for a 70-yard touchdown. But none of this prevents him from being an effective quarterback. He will always have the latter flaws I mentioned, but he's working on the coachable stuff. And that's why after the spring game, I don't take this lightly when Brian Kelly came out and said he's committed to being the best quarterback in the country. He didn't say SEC. He didn't say on this team. He didn't say the best quarterback he can be. That's one I always think coaches, what coach speak is that? He's focused on being the best quarterback he can be. Well, does he suck? No. He's saying he can be the best quarterback in the country. And he said there's just a presence about him. He praised him for being 215 and having put on the weight and looking good. Don't overreact to a spring game. But also, don't be surprised if Daniels is a dark horse Heisman candidate. Next thing I look for is something I think often gets overlooked: depth. Most evaluators like to look at the starting 22 and just kind of gauge how good they are. But you need more than 22 players for a special season. The best example I can recall of great depth is that 2011 season. LSU didn't have a great quarterback, but it had two capable veterans. And even had a young Zack on the bench. When Jordan Jefferson got suspended for his involvement in a bar fight, there was little to no drop-off when Jarrett Lee took over. And when Jarrett Lee looked like a deer in headlights at Tuscaloosa, Jefferson was right there to save the day. It wasn't just quarterback this team had depth already. Think about all the guys who weren't full-time starters. Some of these guys started some games, but there were other games they didn't. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, those guys were freshmen. T-Bob Hebert, Lael Collins. Barkevius Mingo was not a full-time starter. A lot of people forget about Ken Adams. Ron Brooks, hello, he came in and had how many pick sixes when Tyrann Mathieu got suspended? Ron Brooks was very good and had a good NFL career. Thorold Simon was also on the bench. Craig Lawson was your backup safety. Josh Williford didn't start. I mean, all of these were good players who didn't start. You even had two fullbacks you were rotating out there. You had J.C. Copeland converted from defensive tackle as your backup fullback, and he played. Y'all, this team was deep. And mind you, the fullback position was already on the verge of extinction in 2012, y'all. So let's fast forward to 2023 Tigers. I see a lot of good players who might not be starters. Garrett Nussmeier very well could be the best backup in the SEC. He looked very sharp at the end of last season and again in the spring game. But make no mistake, this is Daniels' team. But again, you want that backup quarterback. Daniels gets hurt, gets a sting or something like that. You want Nussmeier to keep things flowing. LSU's offensive line should be greatly improved next season with 4 starters returning. But now there's a lot of good players who won't crack the lineup. I don't know exactly which ones won't, but some of them are going to be on the bench, right? Assuming you don't have attrition. Where does Maryland transfer guard Mason Lunsford? Where does he fit in? He's a 2-year starter, all conference, guys. How about 5-star freshman Lance Hurd, who wants to be your left tackle and thinks he has the talent to do it? He's going to be one of those talented freshmen in the country. Is he really on the bench next year? I don't know. We'll see. Does Charles Turner hold on to his starting spot after starting 13 games and doing pretty well by last year? Or does Marlon Martinez hold on to the starting spot? So he started the bowl game and spring game and looked pretty good at both. I don't know, but you realize these are all fantastic questions to have about your team going into the season. You want guys who are capable of being starters who aren't actually your starters and sitting there rocking and rolling, ready if you have an injury. You don't miss a beat. It's such an important thing people look over, guys. I could go on rambling about every position group, naming guys who might not start or guys with the potential to be very good players, but suffice to say the whole bubblegum and paper clips thing we talked about last year, that's out the window, y'all. We talked about it all last year. That's a thing of the past. Which brings me to my next point. You want to avoid losing players that have no business going in the NFL draft. You want to keep those 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, or undrafted guys. You want to keep them on your roster, right? I understand there's a handful of situations. A guy was graduated or a guy wanted to move on, disgruntled guy, whatever the hell Keishon Butte's doing. There's going to be some situations like that, but you want to keep it to a manageable number, right? We're also talking about guys hitting the transfer portal that were going to be contributors. You don't want to lose those guys. And you did lose one of them. You lost DeMario Tolan, but I think LSU might have I don't think LSU's going to miss him with Omar Spates coming in. I think Omar Spates should be an upgrade over DeMario Tolan at that position. So overall, we'll see tonight with the draft. But I think the guy, for the most part, the guy's declaring, you're going to see why. Oh, that guy's a 3rd round pick. Oh, look, there's BJ Ojolari in the 2nd round. I see why he left. You know, you want it to make sense. You don't want these head scratching roster holes like, why did that guy go pro? You don't want that. That's bad for your team next year. And of course, there's always going to be a handful of guys like that, especially in the era of the transfer portal. But keeping guys like Jaden Daniels on your roster, who could have been a 4th or 5th round draft pick, I understand the appeal of that. Keeping a guy like him on your team, that's a huge deal, y'all. As for my last point, the quiet offseason, we'll have to tell. We'll have to see. But I have a good feeling that Brian Kelly's going to keep it a quiet offseason, and we're not going to see too much unexpected, devastating roster attrition. And I think this is going to be a pretty good team next year, y'all. The more I think about it, 10-2 starts to feel less like the floor for this team and more like a disappointment. So, rant over. That's how I feel. That's why I feel really good about this team. I hope you're fired up after listening to that. Let's get hype. Let's go. All right. Without further ado, Zack Nagy, Sports Illustrated, was nice enough to join us today. Zack, I'm really happy to have you here because you know women's basketball a hell of a lot better than I do, man. Thoughts on, LSU lands the best transfer player in the country, one of the top 5 players in the country, Haley Van Lith. This has got some like Golden State Warriors energy to it, huh?
Yeah, you're hearing some people say Haley Van Lith coming to Baton Rouge is kind of the equivalent of Kevin Durant going to the Warriors.
Yeah, I heard that.
It is what it is. Everybody can say what they want, but this is a monster edition. You're getting a 20-point per game scorer, can dish the ball as well, 4 assists, 2-3 rebounds a night. Does whatever you need from a true point guard and comes in and replaces the void of Alexis Morris just in the blink of an eye. You know, she's off to the league now, and you insert Haley Van Lith, an All-American honorable mention. She's the real deal. You're getting somebody who can just come in and flip the switch and make this team just an automatic contender once again.
So explain to me, you know the LSU women's basketball. I cover only football, so you're going to know that women's basketball roster way better than me. Was point guard kind of like a hole before Van Lith came in because you're losing Alexis Morris?
It was a hole in the perspective of experience. You know, you lost Alexis Morris and you have Flau'jae Johnson, who plays more of a 2-guard role. You're bringing in Janae Kent. She's coming in over the summer. She's from Chicago. She's an absolute dog. She's a 4-star point guard. She's going to come in and she's going to give good minutes when you need her, but experience is needed, and that's exactly what you're getting from a graduate transfer in Haley Van Lith.
Have you followed the Anisha Morrow situation at all?
Yeah, so Anisha Morrow is arriving to campus tonight for her weekend official visit.
Yeah. She's
the call transfer, 25.7 points a game, 12 rebounds a night. Just an absolute monster, and you're getting another All-American to campus. It's a big deal for the coaching staff and Kim Mulkey. She'll be in for the weekend, and then she'll go take a visit to South Carolina next weekend, and then she'll make her decision from there. She already visited USC last weekend, and that was her top 3.
Yeah, USC and baby USC are the other 2 she's looking at. All right. So, again, is she like as high up? Is this near as big a deal as Haley Van Lith in terms of bringing talent in?
Some would argue that it's a bigger deal, to be honest with you. You have ESPN, who has Haley Van Lith as the number 1 ranked transfer in the portal. And then you have 24/7 Sports, who has Anisha Morrow as the number 1 player in the transfer. So you're getting a number 1 and 2 interchangeable. If she decides to take her talent to Baton Rouge, of course. But absolutely, it's about as big of a deal, if not bigger.
All right, Chance Babin wants to know. Tell us right now, is she coming to LSU? You know this, right?
I wish I did, but to get an official visit from her as a top 3 is very impressive. We'll know more about the visit come Sunday night, Monday. We'll know a little bit more information on that front. But for her to be on campus in Baton Rouge and soaking it in and seeing what they're building around here, it's something special. So just to get to campus is a really big deal, first of all, and we'll see how the visit goes come Sunday once it's over.
Man, it's pretty wild seeing all this after that program was just dead for so many years, and on top of that, you're literally still polishing off your championship trophy. Oh, here's a better question from Chance Babin. I'm gonna throw your way. Ask Zack: is Dawn Staley's reign of terror over in the SEC?
She lost a lot of talent. She lost, 2-3 players that went top 10 first round in the draft. You lost Aaliyah Boston. You lose Zaya Cook. You're losing your experienced, savvy veterans. I wouldn't call it a rebuild just because of the transfer portal. Nowadays, you're not really rebuilding. You're just adding players. But it's certainly not going to be the experience level that that she's accustomed to. Is her reign over? No. Is she reloading? She could. And it could take time for that chemistry to gel. So
Yeah.
It could take some time, but certainly they're going to have their fair share of talent as usual.
Did you like Kim Mulkey's comment on building a new PMAC?
There are people like students who are saying that they need to put their money elsewhere and whatnot, and I'm not.
Well, yeah, there's gonna be a Bob man every time athletics spends money. But did you take Bob? Wait, you're a ULL graduate,
precisely,
aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay,
but
all
I'm
right.
telling you, they need to put some money into that PMAC. They need to do some renovations there, especially with a powerhouse being built by Kim Mulkey.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, some renovation. I'd be hard pressed to say they'll build like that TV screen they installed when Will Wade got here. I mean, that was very, very expensive. And they put new seats out there. I'd be surprised if they got a whole new PMAC. That'd be a pretty big investment. But my personal preference I would love that PMAC location just to be a giant parking lot, if not parking garage. It's right where you need it, and just move the PMAC. Move that sucker into those cow fields down there, man. Keep on invading the cow fields.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give me some parking, man. All right, so with all this going on, okay, not a women's basketball professional, but I don't pretend to be by any stretch, but it's been fun following the team. Is LSU, LSU, I can't figure they wouldn't be projected to be number one team in the country next year, right?
It certainly should be a lock. You're bringing in the number one recruiting class in the country, the number 2 prospect in the 2023 class, Michaela Williams, the number 7 player in the country, Aaliyah Del Rosario, who is a 6'6" monster who could absolutely step in and be a starter as a true freshman alongside Angel Reese as twin towers inside. So I mean, it's hard to not have them as the number 1 team in the country and a chance to go back to back.
Since you're already halfway there, what's your projecting starting lineup?
It's tough. You're returning. You got Angel Reese, of course. You have Haley Van Lith, SEC Freshman of the Year, Flau'jae Johnson. A lot of people are maybe not call this a wild card, but Samaya Smith is incredible. She was great as a true freshman, and she could very well come in and make it another immediate impact. And then, of course, Michaela Williams. I mean, she's different.
Yeah. Hold up. I mean, even with now this stacked roster we're talking about, you think she starts as a true freshman?
It's tough. It depends because, LSU could very well bring in another transfer or two, and I believe they will bring in another transfer or two, very much so. So we'll see what position group they look to attack, but it's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched.
All right. Along Cajun. Do you know what that means? Here's your Cajun check. What's that mean?
How's it going, Chance? How's it going, man?
Oh, no, he doesn't know the Cajun French. It means go Cajuns. There you go.
Go Cajuns.
Go Cajuns. All right, how many L's in ULL?
Such a tough question. I don't want to get on anybody's bad side. If Mike was here, I'd tell Mike 1, just because he knows.
You'll piss off Mike. Well, last I counted, it was
Mike
6.
Would like that. Mike would like that. It's UL. There's 4 now.
No. Well, me and Mike. So Mike, he's from the Lafayette area. He loves harassing the Cajun fans, man. So my father-in-law did ULL sports radio for 14 years, something like that. And he always, whenever I came to his radio show, now P, if you come on, you gotta say UL. You can't be saying UL. I got the freedom now. How many L's in ULL? 6 losses this year. So I like to tease him a bit. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit here. All right, most likely to win a national championship next, chronologically now, okay? Baseball, women's basketball, football.
That's so tough.
Yeah.
Baseball has some work to do solely because that bullpen's so banged up. They need to get healthy come, postseason play.
Yeah.
And if they can get healthy, it's hard to rule that team out. They can get hot in the blink of an eye.
And worth no pun intended, they get the first at bat.
Yeah,
they're next up.
Exactly. So they have a very good chance, a very solid chance. And then you look at football, who's just returning so many dominant players on offense, especially, and you revamp the defense. You have the talent there. It's hard for me to not look at women's basketball and look at them as like they've been there now. They've done that. it's hard to not look at them and say, okay, like they could very well repeat.
Oh, they definitely have the best odds. Like they're going to be the best team with the best chances, right? But I just think about basketball. The one and done thing for basketball is just it's a wonky tournament. You have to get a lot of really really lucky. I also think about football and baseball are going to go first before them. I think the baseball team's looking good. Those injuries and the bullpen concern me, man. I mean, they lack a lot of pitching depth, and I don't know, man. You got to get these guys healthy. Tommy White, man, you got to get him out there.
There's a couple of guys you got to get Garrett. You need
is Tommy White? Is Tommy White going to be healthy this weekend?
He should be. Jay Johnson said that if he can play, he'll play. They're not going to hold him out or anything. If he's available, he's playing. No question.
Okay. Well, then there you go. You got to get those guys back because now you're an offensive team now, man. You're Oklahoma football. You just gotta score, and Tommy White's been incredible this year. So I think LSU football has probably got, the least chance of them. But I mean, I do think LSU's got a very real chance to compete in football. So let's shift gears and talk about the spring football game. We sat next to each other for the spring game. So my thoughts on this team, I gave a whole monologue before you came on about why I think this team has a chance to be special. I'm not going out there and saying they should be the number one team in the country or anything like that, but they check a lot of boxes off for me. What were your overall thoughts of the team from the spring game?
The offense looks sharp. They look sharp. You see Kyron Lacey has taken that next step. Of course, small sample size of a spring game. It's hard to say.
Don't overreact to a spring game. Rule number one.
Can never overreact to a spring game.
But we're still talking about it, so let's talk about it. Right.
Because he looked so great during camp as well. He just looked great alongside Malik Neighbors, and then you have Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
Your core three looked fantastic. Your wide receiving core just looks incredible. Jaden Daniels looked sharp. He looked poised right out there. Again, small sample size. I'm not going to overreact. But they looked great. A major takeaway of mine was just to see if Jaden Daniels trusted the deep ball a little bit, and he took a couple shots to Chris Hilton Jr. down the side. Sure, they weren't, completed or they were minimal chances, but he took his fair share of opportunities, and that's something that you want to see.
You talk about Nussmeier do with those deep shots?
I'm talking about Jaden Daniels for now. You know what you're going to get from Nussmeier. He's going to launch those missiles.
Oh, he's going to launch it, dude. It's 4th and 10 every play.
Exactly. But to see Jaden Daniels try to push the ball vertically and work from there, that was a positive sign for me to see, and I was pleased with what I saw from all of spring camp and the spring game as well.
So I started watching the film again, and my first hesitation with my immediate reaction to the spring game was Jaden. I mean, he went 10 for 11 with 17 yards per completion. That's obviously very good, right? And that projects out to a hell of a game if you ramp that up to say 25 passes or something like that. It was where the DB's just awful because it's hard to watch and evaluate. It's a spring game's tough because it's, the team you're covering on offense and the team you're covering on defense. So it's tough to remember, I didn't think the DB coverage was all that bad. There was a couple every here and there. But I thought overall they were pretty good. What was your impression?
Well, we look at the stats and stuff, and you see Jaden Daniels went 10 for 11 and all that, but that doesn't even count the red zone scripted portion.
Oh, yeah.
A beautiful fade ball to Malik Neighbors.
And by the way, I wanted to bring that one up too, by the way, because that's not his strong throw
at all.
He is an underneath passer, and that rainbow to the corner, that was beautiful. That looked like Joe Burrow.
It was
on the very first play.
And I guess going back to what you were saying about the defensive backs and stuff, that's going to take some time. This offseason is going to be about solidifying your secondary. J.K. Johnson, the Ohio State transfer, looked okay. You saw Terrence Welch, who's one of the few remaining people.
And he looked good.
He looked great. He was one of the standouts. Denver Harris is going to take some time to click. And then the Southeastern transfer, Zy Alexander, he'll be your day one starter, I would assume.
He will. And coaches aren't even playing with it. He's been out there since the first practice. Starter, hasn't moved.
Yeah,
I thought a guy like Denver Harris coming from the SEC would get that first rep out there, but they're working on him. They're working on him. The zone coverage, they're working on him a lot. He's just been one of those guys who's been so fast and so much more talented than everybody. He just kind of learned how to run man, and now doing zone requires more, finesse. But my point is on this is when evaluating guys and you got a lot of guys you don't know for sure who you have, you want a large number of guys who you think have that potential, right? Say, say each of them have a 25% chance to pan out and be all SEC guys, right? Well, you want like 5 or 6 of those guys with odds like that, because the odds are you're going to get your starters plus some who are good enough. And I look at the defensive backfield, Deuce Chestnut from Syracuse. I mean, couldn't he be we didn't get to see him, but he could be very good.
He's continuing to recover from that shoulder injury that he had. And an all freshman, All-American. I mean, he's just an absolute beast. He killed it up at Syracuse. And for him to come to the SEC, he just wants to show it out on a bigger stage. And I feel like he has all the intangibles to do so. He's just about as dominant as you could ask for. And I very well could see him being your day one starter as well on the other side of Zy Alexander.
Yeah, well, and then Zy Alexander, that's another guy, the guy from Southeastern. He should be good, right? J.K. Johnson, Ohio State transfer. He could be very good. He was one of the top 50 recruits in the country. Denver Harris should be good based on what we saw in the spring game. LaTerrence Wells should be good. We're talking about 5 corners that, if any one of them rolled out as the starter for game 1, I'd be like, okay, that could work. I don't feel like you're just throwing a guy who's not ready out there, or a guy who isn't that great out there, and that's true for a lot of positions. Maybe the safety depth, I'd like to see a little more depth. I mean, you've got your 2 starters for sure, Major Burns and Greg Brooks, but behind him, you've got the very, very, very talented Taviano, who should be the first guy back there.
Toviano is a guy he's a hybrid. You can put him at corner, nickel, safety. Yeah. He's about as versatile as they come. He's going to be a huge piece to this defense this season. And obviously, the transfer portal window is about to close. You would have liked to have seen them maybe add another safety. They very well could. You never know. But that safety depth is definitely something that is of concern. Yeah. Especially after seeing Greg Brooks and Major Burns both go down with ankle injuries during camp. So yeah, I completely hear you out.
I really liked Brian Kelly's approach to spring, by the way. If he got a hangnail, let's not play him. like keep him on the sideline, because the spring game does not matter in the least bit. Keep your guys healthy first and foremost, man. So I like where the conversation's going, because it reinforces a lot of what I was talking about how important depth is, man. There's so many good players we're naming here. They can't all start. Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton, those are guys who won't start. I think your top 3 is locked in at receiver. Shelton Sampson, that's a guy who's going to be very talented, not going to start. Almost every one of these position groups you're looking at, man, what a job Brian Kelly's done. All last season we were talking about how it was a Frankenstein roster and bubble gum and paper clips, man. It's very impressive to see him put it together this deep, this quickly, of course, thanks to the transfer portal in large part. So overall impressions, am I a little over? Are my purple and gold shades showing when I say this team has the potential to be very special this year?
I don't see the bias at all. I feel like it's almost expected for this team to go 10-2, and with the depth that you have, especially at all position groups, really, obviously. Well, I won't contradict myself. We were talking about safety being a group that needs some work, but other than that, your receiving core is dominant. You have the running backs when healthy to succeed. You have a returning quarterback. You're adding reinforcements at offensive line. You revamped your entire defensive line. Your linebacking core solid. Whit Weeks, West Weeks have looked great. And then, like I was saying, the secondary, it has the chance to be special. So, no. Yeah. From a depth perspective, it checks all the boxes. This team has the chance to be special. Absolutely. I'll agree with you on that. You're not – your SEC shades are not – or your LSU shades are not.
Yeah, I'm not being Homer here. I'm not the sunshine – well, and by the way, last year I got so much hate for just not being a Homer last year. I had the audacity to pick Ole Miss and Bama to beat LSU last year. And, of course, LSU went on to win those games, so – I took a beating last year for not being the Homer, but, I try to, I hope fans can appreciate that, last season I wasn't a big time Homer, and now I'm telling you this team should be good. I hope that you can take it more seriously now that, I've gone out and said that, but man, you mentioned that defensive line. Man, there's so many good grad transfers coming in, and guys like Quincy Wiggins, is he in the looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane? I don't know, but he definitely looks the part physically. Does he come out? But the 2 things I feel like I know for sure is Mason Smith and Savion Jones are about to be beasts this year. That's what I feel certain about.
Don't even forget Mekhi Wingo too.
He's solid. He's rock solid, dude. Mm-hmm. And thing is, you with guys like Jacobian Guillory, Jordan Jefferson, all behind him, and then I don't expect Jalen Lee to beat him out as a starter, but Jalen Lee could come in and contribute. But I mean, there's a lot of guys behind him. Braden Swinson. I'm sorry, Braden Swinson's going to be an edge rusher. He won't slide inside. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of guys at that defensive line spot, man.
Don't forget Ovie Ogufo too, the Texas transfer. He could come in at the jack role and be your day one starter. I mean, he was absolutely incredible during spring camp, and he's somebody who I feel could be, like I was just saying, a starter. Ovie's a complete animal. He understands the scheme. He understands the system.
They liked him at Texas, man. They were really sad to see him go. Like, remember how I was telling you, you don't want to lose players who were going to be contributors. LSU brought in a lot of those guys who you want to avoid losing, and really only lost one. So good things going, man. I'm very optimistic to see what's going on. I mean, with all these LSU sports, women's basketball is looking good. Hopefully, men's basketball. Scott Woodward probably can't help but smile right now, right?
Yeah, he's doing this. This athletic department is looking just absolutely phenomenal in all aspects.
All right, I'm gonna throw a few questions up, and I'm sure Zach wants to watch the NFL draft as much as I do in just a bit. So we're going to get a couple questions thrown out here. If you want to get a question out, throw it out right now. Otherwise, we'll just wrap it up and head out, and I'll see y'all next time I go live. It's going to be a while till football season, so y'all won't see me a while. Let's see here. LSU just moved up highest odds. Vegas over UConn today. Interesting. Let's see here. All right. DA, is Brian Kelly under any pressure to give Garrett Nussmeier reps and keep him from wanting to transfer and be focused and ready if Jaden gets injured? I'll toss that to you.
I would say yes. There's a reason why Garrett took so many, first team reps during spring camp and during the game. You want to keep him ready. You want to keep him sharp. You want to keep him prepared. And obviously you want to keep him in the purple and gold going into the 2023 season. So pressure, I wouldn't say pressure, but it's definitely something that's in the back of his mind that he'd like to keep Garrett Nussmeier, one, on the roster, and then two, keep him prepared. You never know what can happen. Jaden Daniels likes to move a lot and utilize his legs, which sometimes comes with a beatdown. So you want to keep Garrett Nussmeier healthy just in case something happens, or you want to keep Garrett Nussmeier healthy just in case something happens to Jaden Daniels. Absolutely.
I'm going to press you a little bit here, just kind of gauge that. Do you think there's enough pressure where he has to design certain packages for him to come into the game in like almost a 2-quarterback system, like come in and play in competitive games?
I'm going to say no, just because Brian Kelly has said very strongly that he does not believe in a 2-quarterback system. Yeah. So I'm going to say no. But you never know what can happen. If they go up big, you always want to give Garrett Nussmeier a rep, so you want to have a game plan prepared for him as well. So yes and no at the same time. But as for the 2-quarterback system, I'm gonna shut that down quickly.
I'm right there with you. I think, make no mistake about it, this is Jaden Daniels' team. But where I give this thought some credence is that don't be surprised. Like, okay, so the second you go up 24, get Nussmeier in the game. He's a capable backup. He's experienced. Your team shouldn't drop off that much with him in the game, and you really want him getting reps and developing. So get him in there quickly, but don't expect him to take reps away. This is Jaden Daniels' team. I don't think he's under so much pressure that he has to force a 2-quarterback system against his will. Finally, someone who knows how to say "Go Tigers" en français. Yeah, a little thing about me, I speak French for no reason, but yeah, that's something I learned how to do in school. But anyways, Zach, man, I appreciate you popping on. I know I had to juggle our time a little bit. I completely forgot about the NFL draft and had to squeeze it in, man. But appreciate you. Why don't you tell people where they can give you a follow and keep up with what you do?
Yeah, man. So I'm at LSU Country on Sports Illustrated, and on Twitter, I'm at Nagy20. It's on the screen right there, right next to my name. So give me a follow. We cover LSU football, baseball, basketball, recruiting, men's and women's basketball, like I was saying. So check us out. We're putting out a lot of good content daily. Like I said, check us out and give me a follow on Twitter. We're putting out some great stuff.
All right. Thanks, Zach. Have a great night.
Appreciate you, Preston. Let's do it again.
Will do, man. That was Zack Nagy with Sports Illustrated. Appreciate him for coming on, especially on a day like today where he really knows women's basketball. And y'all know I'm a football guy, and I keep up with all the other sports and stuff like that. I watch them, but he really knew that roster. Hey, look at that. Look at the cameo here. Zack, you're backstage. Look at that. Little Jacques Doucet love for you. We got a fist bump out of Zack for that. All right, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. I'll probably be done unless Mike needs me to fill in until football season. The LSU Football Fix will pick right back up the first Tuesday of August, right? So we'll be back then. Until then, guys, enjoy all your baseball. I hope we're talking about Jay Johnson holding a ring and doing all the fancy things that Kim Mulkey just did by the time I start my next show. Y'all have a great evening and enjoy the NFL draft tonight.